Hi quilting friends, happy Feature Friday everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining me here in my sewing studio. I appreciate y'all being here. Today we are going to talk about the merge feature that is available in Edit on your Butler Robotics system. We had a quilting friend out there in Facebook land ask about this feature, so I'm going to talk about it today. That way her question is answered and maybe you have questions about merge as well. So we're gonna get right to it and I'm gonna turn you guys around now. All right, and I do have y'all on a tripod today because I'm gonna be using my hands a lot on the touch screen. So hopefully this is steadier for you guys today. We'll see if it works out well. So the orange box you see on my display is just a layout box for the entire area of fabric I've got on my frame. We are going to add a layout box just to work in. I've got just a little piece of fabric stitched down here on this fabric. It's nothing fancy, it's just white. I'm in layout. I am going to add a layout box and I am just going to do a 2-point layout on this. So I'm going to set my first point at my upper left and my second point at my bottom right to give us a nice rectangle to work in today. And I'm just going to flip this over so we see it nice and big on our screen here. So I went from my full view, which shows me all pattern boxes, that's over here at the bottom left, to the individual box view right next to it so that we can look at this one nice and big and see what we're doing in that. All right, we are going to look at our merge, and in order to do that, we need to add a pattern. So for our example right now, I am just going to add this little clover leaf pattern here. So I'm just highlighting it and hitting the check mark over here on the corner. And now that I've got this added, let's see if I can get a bigger view here. Now that I've got it added, when we're working with merge, and that's this little icon down here, it kind of looks like two squares with arrows pulling them together to make one square. And merge is when you're taking two designs or more and merging them together or joining them together to make one design. So we've only got one design right now. So I'm going to use my plus sign here and I'm going to duplicate my 4-leaf clover a couple times, just so that we can play with this and you can see what we're doing. So I've got 1, 2, 3 individual items that I can work with. And I can resize them. So maybe I want this little, ooh, I'm resizing my screen at the same time. Let me try to just touch on my nodes instead of my screen as well. So I can touch on them individually, resize them, rotate them, do whatever I need to do for each clover individually, all I want, just by touching on each individual one. But once I've done all of my work to my different clovers, or you could have hearts in here or whatever individual designs you have in here, and you've finished all of your work, you may want to merge these and turn them into one design instead of multiple separate designs. So we've got a start and stop point on each 4-leaf clover. If I use my merge button and touch that now, I've gone from having a start and stop on each 4-leaf clover to one start and one stop. And when I touch on the designs, they are now completely one unit. So I can't change the size of each individual. I can't rotate each individual. I can't move each individual. They all work as one unit now. So if I use my move icon in the middle, they all move together. If I rotate, they rotate together. If I resize, they resize together. So when you merge a design, it merges anything you've got in your layout box into one unit to work together. So that's how that works. If you change your mind, you may have to start all over from the beginning. You may be able to use your back arrows, or you may just have to start over once you've merged to get out of that if you want to do more editing work on each individual piece. So that's the basics of how this works. I'm gonna erase all of these by just hitting my minus button, and it's taken all of our 4-leaf clovers out of there. I believe the question that our Facebook friend had was about certain patterns that are available in our Butler Robotics, like this one here. It looks like it's got multiple designs with another pattern in the middle, and they're all merged together with one start and one stop. We've got another one on here that is labeled as a placemat. And when you look at that, it's got holly leaves around the outside and just kind of a wavy line pattern through the middle. And I believe we may want to know how to create something like this and use our merge so that we can stitch it out. I believe these particular designs were actually done in a digitizing program by someone who designed them, but I'm going to get you as close as I can to something like this just on your Butler screen. So I'm going to delete this so that we can get started. So I'm going to use this layout box and some patterns that we have on our robot to kind of create a fun placemat look with a border around it with some pattern work in the middle. And then when we're all finished, we'll merge all of the patterns together so they all work together as one. I'm first going to go to patterns and choose the pattern that I want to start with. And I'm going to use this little corner design here to start. I'm going to highlight it and hit my check mark. Now this is really big in comparison to the little placemat size piece of fabric I have on my frame. So I'm going to start with resizing this piece. And I'm going to use the touchscreen for most of this. But if you want to use your button features, you could use your scale feature to do your resizing. I just think when it comes to something like this, I do a little bit better with the touchscreen nodes. Remember, when you're scaling, your blue nodes do your scaling. So I'm just going to use my blue nodes and shrink this up to about halfway of my block that I've got here. So I'm actually counting my grid. So I'm looking at it going, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit. So I might need to just shrink this up just a little bit more so that it takes up half of my space. And then I need to bring this all the way in so it makes a nice looking little corner. And I think that looks pretty good for what we're working with. So corner number 1 is done. But now I need to fill in my other 4 corners. I'm going to use my duplicate button to get my next corner. I'm going to hit my plus sign, and now I've got a duplicate of what I just did. But I need it to fit in this corner here. So I'm going to use my mirror image buttons. I need to flip this upside down. So I'm going to come over to the right side of my screen where my mirror image buttons are, and I'm going to flip this from top to bottom. I'm going to use this mirror image button right here and flip top to bottom. Now that my design is facing the right direction for my bottom left corner, I'm going to grab my green node in the middle, which is my move node, and just slide it down here into the corner into place. Now that it's in the corner, I need to do a little bit more with my sizing work because I want to get my 2 green start circles to land on each other. I think you can see them. So I'm just going to shrink down my bottom one just a little bit. And then I'm going to touch on my top design and pull it up. Pull it up just a little bit. Maybe I need to do it from the corner. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed when you're using the touchscreen, but you have to use it head on, and I am not head on, the camera is. So I'm going to use my move button here and just tweak it up. One little movement. There we go. And now to get them lined up just a little bit more, I'm going to pull this one in the corner out just a hair. And now my green nodes are on top of each other. So I think those are lined up pretty well. I'm going to go back to this bottom one here, and I'm going to repeat it again we're gonna fill in the next corner. So I'm gonna use my plus sign, and I've got another repeat, but I need it to face the opposite direction to fill in this corner. We're gonna use our next mirror image right to left. When I do that, it's now gonna fit in my other corner properly. I'm gonna use my green node in the center to slide it all over to the corner, and it fits nice there. I need to repeat this one more time so I can fill in my top corner with my plus sign. And it managed to repeat all the way off to the side, but I can still grab my move button real quick and bring this into my block so that I can see it a little bit better. I'm going to mirror image this to fit in my top corner. So this time we're going to use our top to bottom mirror image because we need to flip it upside down. And there we go. It's going to fit now. I'm going to use my green move button and get this up here in the corner. And I'm really close to my little green dots hitting each other. So I'm just going to use my blue node here and stretch this one just a teeny tiny little bit so my dots land on each other. And that's really good. I'm going to get this really close for you guys, but you may be a little bit more picky than I would be at home. And I've just noticed that my design is outside of my orange line here. So I guess I am being a little picky, y'all. I should be picky. I'm going to stitch this out, so I want it to be just right. There we go. That's in a little bit, so I might need to move this one down. Okay. So we have our four corners filled in. So we've used one design. We're going to bring in another design because we want to fill in our top and bottom border space. From edit, we can always go back to patterns. So I'm going to highlight patterns again. And right next to our corner, I actually do have a border piece. So I'm going to highlight that and hit my check mark. And it's brought it into our placemat layout, but it is really big compared to our cute little corners. So we have some sizing work to do on this one. So I'm going to touch on that design. All of my little nodes appear so I can start sizing. I'm going to grab the bottom left corner and just shrink it in. And then I'll grab the bottom right corner and shrink it in. And I think I'm going to try flipping this from right to left because I think if I get my start and stop points to match the stop points on my corners, I think my curly cues might overlap each other, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to see what it does if I right to left and see if they're going to overlap on this side. They may overlap regardless of what side they're on, so it may not matter. This is where I get really fussy about things. You may not care as much as I do, and if you care more than I do, then you just keep tapping those buttons around until you get it the way you like it. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it this way and just let my curly cues, they might just touch a little bit. I might have to just accept that they're gonna touch just a hair. I'm gonna pull this end over just a little bit. This is where you really can get creative with your design work and taking the designs that are available to you. I'm gonna flip it upside down. I think I'm gonna have to do that in order to make myself happy. Okay. I'm happy with that now. This is where you get really creative with using your patterns to make something different and fun. You don't have to use the pattern just as it is. Being able to merge things together and create new designs is a lot of fun. So I'm gonna re-highlight that border piece. I've got it into place the way I want it, but we need to duplicate it because now we need one for down at the bottom. So I'm gonna hit my plus sign again. It's duplicated it over here right next to the first one. So I'm gonna have to drag it and bring it down here, down to the bottom. And because I flipped this top one, I'm gonna flip the bottom one again and kind of get this into place. I think I need to make it just a little bit wider for down here. But I think that looks all right. Well, I need to move it up a little. Y'all are seeing how fussy I am about this stuff. That's okay. So now we have a beautiful floral border running all the way around our placemat. If you can see, we've got some light purple dotted lines that are running across our screen. That is where our machine is going to have to jump from the start and stop of one pattern to the next because of how we place things. And that's okay. We're going to have tie-off stitches and we're going to have to maybe cut some threads along the way. But it's just recognizing that it's going to stitch out this corner, jump to this corner here, stitch out over here to the start, and jump to this corner and stitch here. It's just kind of making a mental note of where it's going to start and stop as it goes along the stitch pattern. But we need to fill in the inside here so that we have interest in the middle. So once again, we can always go back to patterns and add something else. And there is a fun little leafy pattern right here called apple leaf that I think would look nice in the center of this. And you can see that that's crazy big. It's already gone all the way over our borders that we've put in, but we're gonna have to work with this a little bit. I want another repeat of that, both horizontally and vertically. So we're gonna go in our edit over to our repeat. I'm gonna highlight that. I'm gonna add one horizontal repeat so you can see it filled in across from the first pattern. And I'm gonna add a vertical repeat and fill in underneath that. And that's kind of really changed how things look for us. So we're gonna need to resize this whole inner design to make it fit within our cute border that we've already done. This has gotten really small on our screen, so the little trick that I like to use to get things big enough for me to see again is I always hit layout, and it's gone back to a little bit bigger size for me, and then I can go back into edit, and then it goes into full size for me to edit so I can really see things. Y'all remember, I wear glasses and I have the 12-inch screen. I really need everything as big as possible. We're gonna go ahead and touch on the center of our display, and that way we're connecting with all of those pretty little apple leaves. And I've got my blue nodes so that I can start to shrink that design in so that we get a better size for the center of our placemat. So that's a little bit closer there. I still need to make it a little bit smaller because I definitely want to make sure that none of the apple leaves touch any of our beautiful flowers around the border. I definitely want to make sure that you can see the two different areas separately. So I'm going to hit layout again, and now it's really big, and then I can go back into edit, and then I can work with it on a bigger scale. That's a little trick that I figured out along the way. If things tend to get too tiny because of the way you're working with them in your different editing features, you can always hit layout and it might get a little bit bigger for you, and then you can go back into edit and it might get even a little bit bigger for you, and then you can see things better. So I can see, because I did that, my apple leaf is touching one of my curly cues up here. So I'm just gonna slide it down a little bit more, don't want them to touch. And I'm just gonna check all of my bordering areas, make sure nothing's touching. And I think that looks really good. So we have now laid out a placemat, or maybe a little table centerpiece, or whatever you want it to be. This could be really pretty just to sit on your dresser, and you could have a little tray on it to put your jewelry on. This could be useful for all kinds of things. But this kind of represents the placemat that is loaded into the system. This is the best we can do for creating it without design software. But I think we've done a pretty good job. Here's where merge is going to come in. Right now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, 2 different borders, and essentially an edge-to-edge design in the center that we created. And you can see we've got little green dots and little red squares all over the place for our different starts and stops. They're everywhere. We are going to hit our merge button over here on the right-hand side. Oop, I didn't hit it square on, sorry. And when you hit it square on, it takes all of those start and stop points away and creates one start and one stop. It has taken all of those designs. It now considers them one whole piece. And if I touch on my design now, my nodes are all the way around the outside. My move button's in the center. My rotate's over here. And if I were to move this, everything acts as one piece. So I have now created a brand new design by working with the designs that are in my system. So we could stitch this out now if we are ready. But the one thing I really want to do, because we've done a lot of work to get to this point, is I want to save my brand new design. I've worked hard on this. I put a lot of effort into getting everything lined up. So it's time to save this. And if you guys remember, we've got editing. We've got a save. The save is for any design that we've worked with, we've resized, we've rotated, we've created with other designs. We can save it so we can bring it back later. If we hit our little save button over here, which looks like a floppy disk with a pencil on it, we get our keypad and we can name this whatever we'd like. So I'm going to name this Floral Placemat. And now I know once I hit my check mark, Floral Placemat is under the tag saved, and anytime that I want to bring this up again and use it, it's going to be there. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to just double check that it's there. I'm going to go back to my patterns. I'm going to scroll through my tags and find the word saved and highlight saved. Oops, I didn't hit it square on. And right there it says Floral Placemat. So I know it's there. If I decide to stitch this out now, or if I decide to stitch this out tomorrow, I can always come back to the design I just created. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this out now so that you guys can see it in this video. So I'm gonna go to home and get things started and turn my needle on and get things running, and I'll be back with y'all in just a minute with this completely stitched out. I want to remind everybody that we are not digitizing, so this is not a set it and forget it once we have it all laid out and designed on our butler. After each piece is done stitching out, as we've set each corner and middle border piece and the center piece, we're going to have to go through the steps that the butler requires us to tie off, cut our threads, and move forward with adding the next piece. So I just finished this bottom corner. I've had to tie off my thread, cut it, and we're now moving all the way over to the other corner here where it's going to start. I have to pull up my bobbin thread by doing a single stitch. I'm going to have to do my tie-offs, and I'm going to have to restart the stitching on my machine. So that's kind of the difference between doing a built-in design that's already been digitized and everything's combined in a design program, and kind of what we're doing. We're just adding designs together to create a look that we want, but we're not digitizing it in a way where the whole thing is seamless. It's still going to be beautiful, but this is not something you can just walk away from and come back in 10 minutes and it's going to be done for you. You have to stay here with it to complete all the different steps of the design. All right, everybody, there we have it. We are at the end of our stitch out. I am just tying off, and I don't know about you guys, but I think this looks pretty fantastic. Let me get my machine out of the way so you can see the whole thing. I think that turned out to be a beautiful little placemat with a floral border and a pretty leafy fill on the inside. I love how the leaves on the inside kind of form this little centerpiece here. I really love how this turned out. So there we go, y'all. This is how we use our merge button. So we learned that you can take 2 or more patterns and put them into your pattern box and merge them together and make them one. And that's kind of the simplest breakdown of using your merge. But taking more than one patterns and putting them into your pattern box is maybe something nobody knew that you could do. So you know now, and now you can get really creative with the patterns on your butler, or maybe patterns that you purchase and put on your butler, and you can create some really beautiful pieces of art. So don't limit yourself, be creative, and have a great time. Thank you guys for joining me, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.